What's up, guys? Dave Lipson here, and welcome to the weekly Q&A with Dave, the series where you guys, our Muscle Anarch online community, get to ask me any questions regarding training, nutrition, and lifestyle to help you thrive in and out of the gym and to really help you bring thunder. So this week's question comes from one of our athletes who is really asking an age-old question that I have heard thousands of times. So you're not alone. And I love the way that he asked it. He said, hey, asking for a friend. And this is an athlete who's asking not necessarily how to put on muscle, but they're saying, hey, I'm having a hard time putting on muscle. Like, what can I do? I want to kind of preface this with first some definitions and understanding as to what exactly we're talking about. Putting on muscle is not the same as putting on weight. I think plenty of people out there who have no problem putting on weight, but putting on muscle is a different story. Getting muscles to hypertrophy, getting cells to enlarge and thicken, muscle cells to enlarge and thicken in size is a really strategic, adaptive process that requires the right type of stress, the right type of fuel, and the right type of internal chemistry to allow for anabolism, right? The growth of muscle tissue. So it gets a little bit harder as we get older, as we age, because of those three: training, nutrition, and internal chemistry. Our internal chemistry starts to change a little bit as we get older, right? The age-old saying, like, I can't get away with what I used to be able to get away with when I was younger. You know, you could go and eat whatever you wanted and stay out all night and go in the gym and still get gains and perform well. And as you get older, you know, the body remembers these natural degenerative processes that are just, a very normal thing, whether it be orthopedic degeneration, suppression of hormones. It just starts to kind of creep up on you as you get older, where it gets a little bit harder and harder, which means that you need to be able to train and live smarter and smarter to maintain progress or reduce regression as much as possible. So let's start by attacking this question a number of different ways. I want to talk about training, nutrition, and those internal chemistry pieces. But first off, let's begin with just nutrition, okay? Very simple formula and things to think about. If you're an athlete out there and you're looking to gain muscle mass, you're looking to put on size, there are really two big nutritional components that should come first before anything else. One is caloric balance, okay? So caloric balance is telling you how much fuel, just like a bank account, how much fuel is going in versus how much fuel is getting out or being spent to maintain muscle, to perform work, yada, yada, yada. To be able to gain mass, you need to be in what they refer to as a positive caloric surplus, which essentially breaks down to eating more fuel than your body needs to sustain its current mass. You have your basal metabolic rate, you have your activity level, you have your sex, your age, your gender. They all play into that, and you will have a number that is the amount of energy required to just stay your current size, to maintain your weight, to maintain your muscle mass, and to be able to add on top of that, you need additional fuel requirements. It just makes sense, right? So you got to be in a caloric surplus. Now, how do you get to the right caloric surplus? Well, there's some rough guidelines, and I'm going to talk about them just in broad categories, although it's highly individualized because we're all unique snowflakes, different genetics, sex, that all that stuff plays in. But I can give you some basic principles that are good places to start. For most people who train, okay, starting at a caloric surplus of 20 calories per pound of body weight, and granted, I'm estimating that if you are looking to gain muscle mass and size, hopefully you're not doing this as an obese person, okay? Someone who has way too much mass should not be looking to put on more mass. That would probably obviously not be the healthiest thing, right? So I'm assuming that you have like less than 30% body fat for dudes is a good place to kind of begin, right? 20 calories per pound of body weight gives you a good kind of starting point. So if I'm a 200-pound male and I want to try to see if I can get to the right type of surplus, about 4,000 calories is a good kind of litmus test, or what we refer to as a baseline And we do this in some of our challenges, like our 30-day Muscle Mania challenge, where we give you a baseline A day, and then we just see how you react off of that. What we're looking for is that a good caloric surplus should be adding anywhere from maybe 1 to 3 pounds per week, but sustained. Not just 1 week and that's it, but you're able to kind of continue to gain mass as you do that. Too much too quickly has some problems. And the biggest problem is that if you're gaining a lot of weight really, really fast, you're putting 5 pounds on a week, it's probably not quality mass. It's probably a lot of water weight. It's probably a higher amount of body fat than we're really interested in. It can lead to things like insulin desensitization, right? So that you're not as sensitive to insulin, so you got to produce more and more, which is a storage hormone, and it makes it hard to kind of stay lean or in a workable level of body fat when you do it. So think about this as like a slow ascent to a distant horizon. You're gaining 1 to 3 pounds a week over a long period of time to try to have a good amount of that weight gain be muscle mass versus just body fat. Okay. Now, some athletes who are highly active require more than that. Some athletes who are younger just have a higher metabolism require more than that. So that's why 20 is the starting point. If we see at 20, yeah, you're holding the weight or you're losing the weight, that tells us got to put more fuel in. If you are gaining way too much, that tells us, hey, maybe pump the brakes, maybe go to 18 calories per pound of body weight. So I think you guys get the point on that. And like I mentioned before, it's usually not like one prescription you work towards, right? So like as you get used to the calories, you just got to keep pushing a little bit more and more over time. In the first 2 weeks, you might be at 4,000 calories. The next 2 weeks, you might be closer to 44, and so on and so forth. I've done bulking cycles where I started at 4,000 and ended at 7,000. But that was over the course of like 4 months. So it takes a while to acclimate to that and get the body used to not just, how your body processes it, but, digestive support, right? You're eating a lot of fuel, things like apple cider vinegar to help you digest, eating meals more frequently. So you're not just trying to engorge yourself with an enormous meal. It makes it hard to digest that much food at once. So frequency is something. Liver and kidney health, right? A lot of fuel. There's a filtration process in your body to be able to process it. So kidney support, like cranberry, Tudka, a great support for liver and liver enzyme levels to help process all that. Those become really important as you start pushing calories. And like I said, it's a process. So those are calories. Now let's shift to macronutrients. Okay, macronutrients are things like protein, carbs, and fat. And your body, specifically muscle, requires the building blocks of muscle, branched chain amino acids, to heal, remodel, thicken, and grow that tissue, which is essentially referring to how much protein you're eating or the nitrogen balance, right? So what we're looking for along with the caloric surplus is what we refer to as a positive nitrogen balance, which means you're eating a little bit more than enough protein to sustain that muscle mass and even grow some more. And a good starting point for that, especially with the calories as high as we're going to push them, would be somewhere around 30% of your total caloric volume daily being allocated towards protein, right? And what I'm talking about is the total amount of grams of protein that you're getting per day. I'm not talking about the weight of the food. I'm talking about that macronutrient density. So for instance, right, I know that in 1 ounce of chicken, there's about 7 grams of protein. So if I'm trying to get 35 grams of protein, I got to eat 5 ounces of chicken in that meal. You guys are with me. Okay, cool. So that's the nutrition component. Caloric balance, nitrogen balance, gives you the basic building blocks, got to be there. Training, okay? Really, there's lots of different ways to train to grow muscle, but there's some ways that are just far more advantageous for most people to help that happen a little bit better. Typically, really lightweight, really high rep training isn't great for growing muscle. It doesn't have the same kind of stimulus. It doesn't really throw a very wide net out there in terms of the amount of intensity, I guess you could call it, required to force the muscles to adapt. Think about the body like this, right? It wants to do one thing. It wants to survive. Okay, so if you're gonna challenge it to grow, you got to give it a stimulus where the body says, "Fuck! If I'm gonna keep doing this, I got to be bigger. I got to have more muscle," which points a little bit more towards heavier mechanical loading, force on muscles. Think about muscle pulling on bone, maximal tension, time under tension, volume. That stuff becomes really important. And if I could explain this really simply, heavy volume does the trick, okay? Heavy lifts for lots of reps, with lots of rest in between, does really good. So that's a great way to kind of accumulate that volume. We're talking about repetitions anywhere from that 8 to 12 rep range is really good. Volume of sets, maybe anywhere from like 14, maybe 18 sets, sessions that last somewhere around almost 90 minutes. Of lifting with, say, 2-minute rest periods between the lifts, percentages of 70% or above. These are of your 1 rep max, right? These are kind of the sweet spot, okay? And like I mentioned before, it can be seen in like our Muscle Mania program where we really try to maximize the amount of heavy volume while also maximizing the recovery, because it's not enough to just beat yourself up in the gym, but you can only progress as much as you can recover. So we shift from a model where normally our muscle anarchy people who are kind of in there, the aesthetics performance crowd, right? They train 5 days a week, they condition with it and that type of stuff too. If it's just about muscle and size gain, now there is no conditioning. All right, conditioning is be antithetical to building muscle because you're just burning calories and you're going to be pulling muscle glycogen, and it's not necessarily a great muscle building stimulus. So we're going to really put all our eggs in that heavy volume basket. We're going to try to get as much rest in between sessions as possible. So you might train Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. Dogs are going nuts. And that allows you to get enough recovery because it's not like more is better. Like I said, you're only going to be as good as much as you can recover, and most people are overtrained, and that's another reason why it makes it really hard to gain muscle. So make sure that you're getting rest. It's almost better to be a little over recovered than a little under recovered when it comes to building size. And that's a lesson that I've had to learn, is that you can get a lot more bang for your buck out of just doing the simple things well and being okay with walking in the gym and feeling good, as opposed to walking in the gym and like feeling sore every day. It's a little bit harder to do it that way. So these are some of the pieces. Supplements, okay? Supplements are just a garnish, an ancillary addition to your diet. They can help you get into that anabolic phase where your body's wanting to grow. They can help you hit calories. They can help you hit macronutrients. They can give you access to micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals that can help optimize your body's processes, which plays into your internal chemistry. So when it comes to supplements, there are really 2 big ones that I recommend. The first one is creatine monohydrate with some type of glycogen loader, carbohydrate-y type of thing with it. Okay, I'll explain why. Creatine monohydrate is one of the most well-studied sports supplements. It shows an increase in performance in the ATP pathway, or the phosphagen system, which is responsible for like top-end maximal effort, heavy lifting, fast sprinting, type of work. And the reason it does that is because those types of activities use a lot of ATP. So when you're putting creatine monohydrate to replenish those ATP stores, that pathway develops really nicely. It's highly correlative to increased size and increased strength, not just for that phosphagen replenishment reason, but also because creatine monohydrate volumizes cells. So it helps them retain more fluid inter and intracellular, so in the cell and around the cell, which causes good cellular volume, causes that anabolic environment, helps your muscles grow. So creatine monohydrate is great, and it's even better with carbohydrates immediately after a workout, because not only are you replenishing ATP, but you're also replenishing glycogen stores that you use. Again, helps that whole anabolism and refueling the muscle, keeping them big, keeping them full. A full muscle is a strong muscle, yada, yada. You get the bouncy ball here, okay? And when you're doing this, you can take a dose of creatine monohydrate that you just maintain. It's probably a lower dose. But what I found more effective is actually cycling it, because it does have to process through the kidneys. So if you factor in the fact that you're breaking down muscle, okay, and you're putting creatine monohydrate in, it's got to filter through your kidneys. That's a lot of stress on the kidney. So what I would recommend doing is having just a period of time where you load up on the creatine. This can be for maybe 6 to 8 weeks, that you are hammering anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 grams of creatine monohydrate immediately after your workout. And that should be good enough to keep you in a nice healthy zone where there's no reason to be concerned about that type of stuff. And yeah, water retention is absolutely a thing when it comes to that. I mean, you're gonna feel a little bit bigger and puffier, and that means the creatine is working, right? So that's not a bad thing. Other things, meal replacement shakes, those are amazing, okay? And the reason why they're good is because it's hard to eat a lot of meals of food, just to have the palatability to like stay up at night and slugging down a, rice and chicken or whatever it is that you're eating. So having the meal replacements is nice if you're going to start eating early in the morning. Maybe you don't have a huge appetite. Boom, slam a shake, 1,000 calories already in your system, right? 50 grams of protein, there it is. 100 grams of carbohydrates, you got it. Okay, so it's a little easy to get down just to kind of give you that kickstart. Same thing late at night. These are the times where it can be typically hard to eat, and it sits heavy in your stomach when you have a meal. So if you're going to be eating later at night, I think it makes sense to not be staying up tossing and turning all night, because having poor sleep affects hormones, which affects anabolism. So there's the bouncing ball again. Don't do that. And then there are some other things that you can use to kind of enhance recovery, deep sleep. I personally really like using CBD products before bed, because deep restful sleep gets you into that REM state, which is great for producing growth hormone, replenishing the testosterone production. So that's really good. ZMA, kind of similar, does a nice job giving you recovery, getting you into deep sleep. And these can be valuable. And also even things like natural testosterone enhancers. These are can be herbs, amino acids. The top ones off the top of my head are things like ashwagandha, great root for helping hormonal balance. D-aspartic acid, that's great. Vitamin D, that's another great one. Lysine, arginine, these are all really good just for helping hormones produce the way they want to. Now we're going to get into the danger zone. I hope you guys are ready. HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard of this. You've probably seen a bunch of clinics driving down the road, the testosterone clinic, the HRT clinic. I just want to give you guys an idea of like what this is, who it's for, what are the dangers, what are the advantages, and how this plays into all of it. So let's go back to internal chemistry. Okay. Internal chemistry is so important. As you're a guy and you get older, these hormones start to decline. And I'll tell you this, if you are a guy and your testosterone is 200 or below, you're kind of fucked. It's really hard to get your body into an anabolic state if your testosterone is that low. Now, usually when I see guys that have testosterone this low, it's usually also because of stress, a lack of sleep, tons of stress, under eating, overtraining. This is like the golden sombrero. So you might start there before you jump to any kind of hormone therapy, yada, yada. You might start there to see what you can accomplish naturally. Also, some of those herbs and supplements I was talking about before you jump on that HRT train, because once you're on it, you are never going to want to get off it, right? I mean, once you're feeling great and you're waking up with boners, I don't see any people like really wanting to go back to another way of life. So I recommend doing things naturally as long as you can before you get on that train. When you do, if you've tried it all and you're like, it's just not happening. I've had some older gentlemen come and approach me and talk about like steroid cycles, and I do not recommend that. It doesn't make sense for someone with low testosterone to go on a steroid cycle, because those are like pushing hard drugs for a short period of time. Usually doctors are not involved, so there's not good medical oversight. Usually aren't like legit pharmacies you're getting it from, so that's another factor of danger. And for someone who already has hormonal suppression, it's just going to make the hormonal suppression worse. So because it's a cycle, it's a period of time that you're doing something that your body just can't sustain. That's why they have to cycle it, because it's too much stress on your internal organs and body functions. I don't recommend that. If you're the type of person who's like, I got to do something about this testosterone, I tried everything naturally, HRT is a really good option. Okay. And I'll tell you why. The biggest fear with people when they talk about HRT is their fear is like, if I'm on it, I'll always have to stay on it. And I'm afraid I won't be able to have sex with my wife, or my testosterone is going to be low. It's going to shut off my own production, yada, yada, yada. The reality is most of them are already there. Most of them are already experiencing erectile dysfunction. Their testosterone is already really low. They're already having all the symptoms of low testosterone. So their worst fear is being what they are currently. So it's not a big deal. It's not really a factor there. Some people are afraid of just the legality of it if they compete in the sport, like CrossFit, right? Obviously, if you're doing CrossFit and it's a drug-tested sport, you can't just like take HRT. That's kind of cheating, right? I mean, I don't know what they do with the masters, but I'll tell you, if you're a young, healthy person who has good testosterone production, there's really no good reason to be on testosterone and to be competing in something like that, because it's just lying. You're just cheating. So don't do that. But if you're doing it for your longevity and your quality of life, absolutely. We have the technology to fix people now. So why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't you use testosterone or stem cells or peptides or whatever it is for you to live your best life, as long as you can do it responsibly? So if you're on that train, number one, find a doctor. Find a really good doctor who has experience doing this stuff with athletes, not just athletes that are like older dudes, but athletes who are kind of like you, right? You're probably somebody in your 30s or 40s, maybe even 50s. You're highly active. You just want to feel good. You're not looking to do anything that's dangerous. Make sure that you have somebody who has a track record, and particularly doctors that seem to do it themselves, I found have a great knowledge and understanding of what to do, what to look out for. There's a lot of considerations that go into here, like regularly monitoring your blood work, making sure that you're not enhancing any risk factors. And there are some things that might disqualify you from even being eligible to take something like hormone replacement therapy, like a previous risk factor. If you have something like prostate cancer in your family, if you have heart disease in your family, high blood pressure, stroke, those are not good things to be taking testosterone on, because they can enhance those risk factors. Things like increasing your red blood cell count can enhance the probability of a stroke. Your PSA count can go way up when you're doing that type of stuff. So these are all factors that are in there. And this is a really long conversation that opens up a can of worms. But my point is, with all this, when it comes to gaining muscle, nutrition, training, supplements, internal chemistry, these are all the really important factors. I'm giving you guys a bunch of resources and things to kind of think about with regard to this stuff. There's no real wrong way to do it. And if you're doing the basic things well, it doesn't matter what the nuances are. As long as you're kind of doing the most things mostly well most of the time, you're going to see good success. And when you hit a roadblock, if what you're doing isn't working, well, there's probably a slight variation, right? It might be upping your calories a little bit. It might be reducing your training volume a little bit. It might be focusing on sleep. But they're usually small adjustments that can keep you moving in the right direction. And there's nothing wrong with you either, right? If you're having a hard time putting on muscle, a lot of people have a hard time putting on muscle. It's like a puzzle. You just got to figure out the pieces and figure out what's going to work best for you, for what you want, what you need, and what's going to ultimately give you what you deserve. So that's my spiel. Only took 21 minutes to talk about it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And that is this week's Q&A with Dave. We will see you next week for more conversation.